children, making it possible for me to pursue economic and educational opportunities. I was able to complete my career in public service. It gave me the chance to be these same opportunities if provided with access to the pathways that were available to me. Yet for too long, the city's bureaucratic policies and the lack of strategy to address homelessness stable permanent housing. Instead, the administration has maintained stable permanent housing. Instead, the administration has maintained these obstacles that block access to rental and housing assistance, like city obstructs low-income New Yorkers' access to many of the essential services positive steps in a new direction. It's a lifeline for New Yorkers, and they are relying on us to advance these policies. We do this work to help Their experiences inform and guide our legislative efforts, and the laws that we enact are pivotal. Experiences inform and guide our legislative efforts, and the laws that we enact are pivotal in our city. We must implement these laws. We cannot afford to fail the New Yorkers whose lives here, their perspectives on why these new city FEPS laws must be successfully implemented. Thank you. With that, I would
the New York City Youth Action Board. I have tussled through homelessness since the age of 17, navigating both the DYCD runaway months to receive rejection, then to have the voucher abruptly close, leaving with the same hope it had brought in, and no alternatives. Young people should not wait until young people are in the worst of conditions to set the bar of eligibility there. Youth in DYCD RHY programs are just as their peers in DHS shelters and should be given the same opportunities. The mayor not implementing these laws to give the youth in DYCD programs access to city FEPS goes against and everyone in the YAB, and it shows inconsideration on many levels. Certainly, demonstrate a resolute commitment to tackling homelessness, including demonstrate a resolute commitment to tackling homelessness, including city programs, stands out as an effective
I knew I was next. I'm always shocked. So yes, my name is Milton Perez. Coming today. I spent over 5 years in the shelter system. Actually, been in Brooklyn maybe 10 years now. And the reason that I always say over 5 years because I kind of stopped counting at that time. After 5 years, the people that were coming in the shelter at that time, they couldn't believe that people could spend so much time in the shelter system. So I kind of stopped saying it because people would just walk away. They didn't believe it. I finally got out of maybe 2 years ago after being gifted with a voucher. Throughout the year, barriers that in place, whether you're making $1 over to qualify, so you're working, but you're making too much money to qualify for a voucher, but not enough money to get an apartment. So I got lucky 2 years ago. It wasn't easy, but it's got a voucher where some were able to get housing, you know. And a lot of times without any are going to work out. So I'm still in that mode. The apartment I'm in is maybe 2 train stops from the hotel that I was during COVID in a stop. So maybe 3.5 years. This is in Brooklyn, the Brownsville area. So first of all, usually we thank people experience dealing with people that are not only professional but caring, and that's constituent services. So I want to thank constituent services in the offices, Intergov. I'm not sure what that is, but they do good work. Sure what that is, but they do good work. To the people that are here, Chief Tiffany Caban from Queens, Farías Sanchez from the Bronx, Deputy Speaker Ayala from the Bronx, no, representing the Bronx and Manhattan, and of course the Speaker Adrian. They do a lot of work. I don't mention to Brooklyn, you do a lot of work, so I want is an eviction prevention supplement program. That's what an eviction prevention supplement program. That's what City FEP stands for. So my side at that time was being homeless, but we know, and I think it's interesting, having homeless people, formerly homeless people, advocating for people that are already housed. To market rate. So the City FEP voucher has risen. Compared to what we actually spend to keep people warehoused in the shelter. Is the numbers, those numbers are insane. Voucher holders like myself are no longer priced out of apartments by being given a voucher that could barely cover half the rent of the available units. Vocal New York partners, some that are here, have been focused on improving City FEPs into the most efficient rental assistance program there is. City FEPs at the moment is the best tool that we have to get people out of shelter. And as we know, some tools need to be keep improving and needs to keep expanding to cover as many people as possible. So basically, rental assistance for people that need it the most. Some of these bills I've seen early on, you know, asking our advice, our ideas, and some of these things get into these bills. And sometimes we kind of like spearhead and we write our own bills. So thank you for that. It's much appreciated in your leadership. And there's more to come. The implementation and implementing and identifying solutions to potential challenges arising from it, and now having to fight for the actual implementation. So one of the first times, yeah, that I was over here and so it's much appreciated the work that you've done to get things to this level. Identifying and lifting up additional fixes to City FEP's focus on accelerating housing placements, improving the application process, and timely rental payments, and ending source of income. So this is and thank you for the folks at Vocal helping me, get my thoughts together and writing this down. So with more than 100,000 New Yorkers experiencing homelessness in the city, we must remain focused on fighting for solutions. I think about the 815 homeless New Yorkers who died in public spaces, shelters, and hospitals for the fiscal year ending to 800 people that died due to homeless issues. It's beyond my understanding. To be dying because of homeless issues in the city of New York. If each and every one of them had a home, I can only imagine the lives they could have continued living and the stories they could tell. It is my hope that moving forward, we think of them and countless others in shelters waiting for us to take action. Thank you all.
You took my book.
Oh, my.
Stevens from the Coalition of Homeless Youth.
Good morning. My name is Zaquan for Coalition for Homeless Youth and a dedicated youth advocate with firsthand experience of overcoming homelessness. I would like to start off by expressing my deepest thanks to Speaker Adams and Deputy Speaker Ayala. First time make homeless youth and young adults in the DYCD Runaway Homeless Youth Shelter System eligible for City FEPS vouchers. Makes it more infuriating that the mayor is refusing to implement them. A shelter is a shelter. Homelessness is not defined by the amount of trauma someone has faced. We should strive to lessen the mental and psychological traumas of homelessness by providing different avenues in 2016. And since then, more than 10,000 young people have been discharged into homelessness. I was one of those young people whose time experiencing homelessness was extended at least 2 years because I didn't have access to city counts every month. To someone in the shelter system, every day matters that we are closer to securing housing. Of the shelter system alone. I can tell you firsthand that not giving access to vouchers simply because they are not in a DHS shelter is not only young people need and deserve housing, and they need a leader who will actually get stuff done for them, not just talk about it. So I ask you, Mr. Mayor, are you going to get stuff done for homeless youth, or are you okay with thousands of more having to
I feel like I should just leave her here. You can take my job. We'll now hear from Calvin Michael.
laws now. These laws will help to more homeless people get out of the shelters and finally laws now. These laws will help to more homeless people get out of the shelters and finally get permanent housing. When I was in the shelter, I saw how long people were stuck in the system. I met people who are stuck in the shelter for 2 years, 3 years. Clark Thomas Men's Shelter on Randall's Ward's Island, better known as Gladiator School. When we raised the voucher amount in 2021, we finally held out to get shelter into the permanent housing. Voucher, then when they are now eligible, that they're now eligible voucher, then when they are now eligible, that they're now eligible for, that isn't right. The City Council passed these bills back in May after the mayor vetoed them, and we had to overturn the veto in order for them to go through. I was actually at that City Council meeting. And to the mayor, we need you to know to follow the laws, okay? I mean, Mayor Adams, once you're a New York City police officer, you should know how to follow the law, okay? There are thousands of people like me who need city FEPs to get out. Thank you.
And finally, we'll hear from Councilmember Tiffany Caban.
Thank you. I will be incredibly brief because I think everything that has needed to one thing, or maybe two. One, if it saves lives, state enough the level of trauma and the long-term impacts of the experience of homelessness. And we also can't say it. And so instead of talking about housing, the issue, the impacts, I want to talk about politics and executive leadership. You know, I personally am tired of our mayor showing such contempt for the council, our of our city that is being flouted and so right now it's also about our leadership, protecting our democracy and making sure that the people's it's the law of the land, and he is obligated to implement or to turn his back on New Yorkers who are in urgent need of his help in this moment now. And we've done the fiscal analysis. We know that this is the more prudent and cost-effective approach. Really grateful to continue to be in this fight with y'all, and thank you for sharing your stories and your experiences, and thank you for your leadership, Deputy Speaker.
Yeah.
So we'll take a few questions, but I want you to take a really good look
partially implemented some of the changes that went into law? Have they not implemented any of them at all? And what's going to be the council's response and reaction if time continues to go on and the changes are not implemented?
Yeah, I think we've been very clear about that. I have not heard from DSS other than the highlighting the idea that they're not going to implement these laws at this time. They did, in fact, implement the 90-day rule early on. It was one of the bills that they were a little bit more comfortable with, and so at this point, the administration has been given notice by the Speaker of the City Council that they have until the 7th of February to respond and to implement this law. Specifically, the expansion. Sure, the expansion part of this package was really important because right now, in order for you to qualify for city, one, assist families that were on the verge of eviction so that we didn't have to absorb the extra cost of housing them in shelter, but also that family didn't have to go through the trouble of having to identify a unit, right? That's the part of it, I think, that the administration is not necessarily getting and objecting to, even though according to their own records they have about 10,000 people already in the shelter system that qualify, with over 50,000 New Yorkers that are stuck in shelter. That's not a huge number, but families unnecessarily for years on end. Oh, yes, a little. So back there. I can hardly see you back there, Emily. Have a responsibility to draft and pass laws that help everyday New Yorkers. Their responsibility is to enact those laws. Right now, they are not in compliance.
I'm a graduate of Columbia University.
Come to-
2000
come
I'm
to
a
the
graduate of Columbia University 2006, and I was homeless for 7 years. So it doesn't take a lot. You That's okay? Thank you.
Yeah, and I just think taking a broader approach to a different kind of example, but you can identify a problem, and there was recent coverage on this around the mayor that there's an increase in that, or that there's a problem that we need to quote unquote solve, you can go about this different ways. The way that the mayor has chosen to go about it is to put funding into increasing the capacity of juvenile facilities, but cutting funding for
responsibility to also ramp up the development of housing in order to create the number of available units. And I want to just add that this body has done an exceptional that truly reflect the needs in our community that have been sitting at HPD's desk for years on end because we have no financing to do those. So as we're having a broader discussion about the need for development in the city, I really don't want to lose sight of the fact that there are for funding, and they're ready to go. So, Thank you. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you. You did a good job. All right, you want to apply for my job, or do you?